You guys asked for it and we're delivering. I think it was about a week ago that I did a video called the best and worst fragrances from 5 popular brands. You can check it out here if you missed it. This is a follow-up. We are doing a part 2 because so many of you guys requested it. And I'm so thankful. I was really hoping you would because I had a lot of fun putting it together. I was like, please let them like this because I want to keep doing them. It is a bit time consuming, so I wanted to make sure you guys enjoyed it just to make sure I'm putting my time in the right place, and I'm glad that I did. Y'all really came through. So if you missed the last video, please check it out. That'll give you the idea of what we're doing here. But just to briefly reiterate, this is not what it seems. I'm not talking about the best and worst fragrances of anything because that is completely subjective. Those terms are not absolute. They lie in the perception of the beholder. I'm not exactly talking about taste today. However, what I can say, and I think most of us could agree on this, is that the fragrances you wear the most often are probably your favorites. I think it's pretty reasonable. It's not always the case. As I've said before, I have a lot of fragrances that I really truly love, but they're not the most versatile. So I don't actually reach for them all that much each year. They might get a couple wearings per year. So I'm keeping things as honest as I can. We're relying on the numbers. I'm using Parfums.net, which I've been using since I got started in this hobby. I track all of my fragrance wearings with Parfumo. You can do so if you make your own account. It's free, and they also have an app. The app allows you to track your wearing, but you can only look at how much you've worn fragrances on the desktop site. There's going to be a link down to Parfumo. If you want to track your own fragrance wearings, if you want to catalog your entire collection, you can do that too, and we can be friends there. I have a profile, you can have a profile, we can connect. Friends. And if you're wondering, this video is not sponsored by Parfumo. However, it is sponsored by one of the channel partners, Fragrancebuy.ca. I do a video for Fragrancebuy every month because they're amazing. And you don't need me to tell you that. You probably already shopped from them. You've contemplated shopping from them. Maybe you just shopped from them yesterday. They have an ever-expanding catalog of every type of fragrance you can just about think of at some of the best prices you'll find around the internet. They have amazing rewards programs. They have fantastic shipping, and just the customer service all around is amazing. They send me a few fragrances each month. One of those fragrances happens to fit perfectly into this video, and we'll get to that in a second. So I'm relying on Parfumo to count up the number of wearings I have from 5 different brands. So from each brand, I found the fragrance that I've worn the absolute most and the fragrance I've worn the absolute least and paired them together as best and worst. But again, they're not best and worst because a lot of the ones I've worn the least, I don't hate them. A lot of them I really like them. So there's very little emotion involved in this compilation. I really hope you enjoy it. Let's dive right into it. Let's get a big house out the way first. That is the house of Creed. And this fragrance is really nice. There was actually a stint early on when I got it where I was kind of obsessed with it, at least mildly. And I've worn it a handful of times, but I don't really reach for it anymore these days because there's others that I enjoy more. But it's a wonderful scent that I have no plans to get rid of. I have actually worn it 12 times, so a couple handfuls. But it's been 2 years since I've worn it. Creed is one of the houses I've worn the most from, by the way. So 12 wearings for Royal Water. This one is not really talked about very much at all. And you could easily call this a citrus aromatic. This is bright citruses with green, spicy basil. So it is fresh, but it is a little bit mature, just a little bit. It came out in the 1990s and it kind of smells like it, but only mildly. The quality here is wonderful. The wearing experience is very classy, albeit simple. Doesn't last a ton of hours, which is okay. I might get a good 5 or 6 out of this, and it's perfect for a daytime outing when I want to dress up a little bit more. And yeah, 12 wearings is no small amount with a collection of hundreds of bottles. You can even see the dent I have put in the bottle. So yeah, I have enjoyed it, and you know, maybe I'll come back to it sometime this summer. We'll see. I do have a lot of great memories with it, but nonetheless, my least worn fragrance from Creed goes to Royal Water. I have revealed my most worn from Creed several times, so it's really no secret, and even if you didn't know, you could probably surmise because I'm no different from many of you. I have fallen victim to wearing this fragrance a lot over the years. I've worn it 66 times, but it has been about 7 months since I've worn it, and this happens to be my most worn fragrance of all time. Nothing really comes that close to the amount of times I sprayed Creed Aventus. Yep. Creed Aventus. Boring stuff. This is my old bottle, my old 120 ml bottle. It's a 16E01 batch for those of you who care so deeply. All I have to say about Aventus, I think it's a beautiful fragrance. I do kind of consider it a masterpiece. I do consider it a trailblazer, maybe a victim of its own success in some ways. And I think one of the biggest reasons why it has gotten a bad name is because of how much the brand has altered it and changed it, all the batch variations. But again, I don't really engage with that all that much. I keep myself away from all that hoopla. What I can say is that this used to smell better than it does now. I've had this bottle since 2017. It was a gift from a good friend, and it has changed over the years. Some of the top notes have gotten dull. It's not as bright as it was. It's not as juicy as it was, and it doesn't last as long as it used to. I used to get easily 10+ hours out of this very pineapple forward batch, and it gets flat. It's kind of 2-dimensional when it used to be 3-dimensional. So a little bit of a shame. I'll keep the bottle. Someone will probably want to buy this later on, even though the scent has changed a bit just because of the batch, and it is a pretty sought after batch.
I'm not selling it right now, so don't ask.
That's Creed Aventus. I've worn it a lot. Let's move on to the House of Parfum de Marly. And this fragrance I have worn only one time, and it was about 2 years ago if I'm not mistaken. I don't really wear this simply because it is the type of profile that my wife does not really care for. It is kind of powdery, fresh, white, floral, musky. She just doesn't like that profile. I don't really wear it around her. It's not my absolute favorite profile either, but there are a couple that I do actually like. This is not my favorite of that type, but I do like it. I think it is a pleasant scent, and it's one that's not often talked about. This is called Darley. A lot of people say this is close to something like Reflection Man from Amouage, or even a niche version of Le Male from Jean Paul Gaultier, and I see what people are talking about. I do agree with those comparisons. It is a very pleasant scent, but it does smell really close to those fragrances that exist. In fact, you could kind of combine them together and maybe get this fragrance. So in that way, it's not really original, but it is pleasant and it is great quality. So I have to give that to it, but I do want to give it its wear because it is one that's not talked about a lot, and I do appreciate that. I want to put fragrances in front of you guys that no one's really showcasing, but that's Darley, just with one little wearing. And we have a boring pick at the top spot. Admittedly, yeah, this was one of my absolute favorite fragrances for quite a while, and it shows because I've worn it 52 times. It's been about a year, about 12 months since I last wore it, because I had to pull myself away from it. It was topping all of my most worn for the year lists, and I like to change things up. So I have changed it up, and it's been a year since I reached for it, but I do enjoy it. I do have great memories with it. It has gotten me some compliments for those that really want that. If you want compliments, just spray this on. Make sure you've showered, be a kind person, listen to people, dress well. You're probably going to get a compliment. On Layton. Aromatic, spicy, fruity, sweet. It is reminiscent of a mainstream type of profile within the quality of a niche bottle with quality ingredients. I don't consider it a special fragrance, but I do consider it utterly pleasant, very easy to wear, and undeniably attractive. I will always have Layton. I do enjoy it. Again, I'm just trying to change things up for my own sanity. But that's Layton. I know a lot of you guys already love it, and it is available at fragrancebuy.ca along with most of the fragrances we're talking about here. All right, another big house, Mancera. There's a lot of hype around Mancera, mainly because they have niche fragrances that come at relatively low prices, especially on the discounters, and I can appreciate that. I do find Mancera to be a little bit of an overwhelming fragrance house. They have so many fragrances. It's such a large catalog. Nonetheless, they smell good. A lot of them are interesting profiles. Some of them are borderline clones.
We're not going to talk about that right now.
But this is a flanker to a very popular fragrance from the brand. This one I've worn twice, and it's been about 8 months since I've worn it. This is Intense Cedrat Boise. This one has been around for not that long. One thing I am noticing, I've never noticed this before, there is a lot of sediment in this bottle. I don't know if it's always been that way. I mean, you'll see in the B-roll, this is kind of troubling. I'm just being real. I'm noticing this on camera. A little bit here and there is okay, but this is crazy. Every time I have to choose between the Intense and the original, I usually choose the original. The intense smells good. It is kind of an intensified version. It is less fresh and bright. It is a little bit darker and smokier, but it is mostly the same profile. I would say if you have one, you don't need the other. It becomes a little redundant, but anyway, that's all I'm going to say about it. I need to do some further investigation. Let me know if you've seen what I see here with your bottle of Intense Cedrat Boise. And my most worn fragrance from Mancera with no sediment in the bottle, which is nice. I have worn it 15 times since I've gotten it, but it's been about 2 months since I've worn it. And this is, yes, Cedrat Boise. The hype king, the hype beast, the compliment magnet, as they say, the panty melter, all the things. If you just want to have a good scent, a likable scent, then this is one that'll do it. But again, this is not going to make people like you. They'll just like the way you smell. You have to bring the rest, of course. Fruity, citrusy, woody, kind of smoky as it dries. I have come to like it more. I've always liked it, but I was resistant because it was so hyped and I don't really like to conform in that way. Nonetheless, I do have to admit, pleasant stuff. I do like to wear it. If I need something that smells really mass appealing and lasts a long time, I might reach for this because it serves that function perfectly. It is the tool for that job. Cedrat Boise. To the house of Guerlain. I love this house. I have more than a handful of fragrances from the house, and there's others that I still want to get. This one is brand new to me. This one was sent to me by Fragrancebuy just recently, so I have only worn it one time. So it is technically my least worn fragrance in my Guerlain collection at this point, and I just wore it a few days ago, and I'm gonna get more wearing out of it. It's definitely not a summer fragrance, and it's like 100 degrees Fahrenheit where I am now, so I'm not getting a ton of wearing out of it. I did wear it on an evening out. It was breezy and it was beautiful and perfect. So this will be getting more wearing on summer evenings as we move into the fall. This is L'Instant de Guerlain. This is the Eau de Toilette. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me about this. Have you tried it? Have you tried it? Have you tried it? I've known about this fragrance ever since I got involved in the community, and I've wanted to try it for years and years and years. I just never went out of my way to blind buy the bottle. Well, here it is. And does it live up to the hype? I'd say mostly yeah. It is a very special fragrance. It is pretty unique, quite a mixture of elements that you wouldn't think go together, but they work. I basically get an orange covered in earthy, dusty chocolate that's a little bit fresh. This is the Eau de Toilette. It wears a little bit light and transparent, which is perfect for the functions I've described, and I really, really enjoyed the wearing experience. So this is not my least favorite. It's just my newest one, and it's going to get some more wearings for sure. Let me know if you've tried L'Instant de Guerlain. Again, this is the Eau de Toilette. Don't have the EDP. I know some of you will ask. I haven't tried it, so maybe one day. My most worn Guerlain, 19 wearings here, and it's been about a month since I last wore it. I did a review on this years ago, really corny but very sincere review, and it still remains as one of my favorites. This is Medial Cologne. Unfortunately discontinued, really hard to find, but Guerlain has re-released it in the form of Platon Privé, whatever the heck they're calling it, Medial Platon Privé. I hear it's pretty much identical to this. Unfortunately, Fragrancebuy is sold out of that and this, but they might get the Platon Privé in again sometime soon, who knows, and they definitely have a better chance of getting that than getting this one. So keep your eye on Fragrancebuy. You'll probably find the best price you can get for that fragrance. But this is kind of fizzy, bright, slightly creamy, lemony, woody, handsome, but fun, easygoing, a nice little almond feel that is kind of signature to the DNA, that creamy almond, beautiful fragrance. Very uplifting while being calming. Medial Cologne. And finally, we're going to talk about the house of Amouage, one of my favorite houses. Also by default, this is my least worn from the house because it is my newest. This is the newest release from the house. They call it King Blue. The only feature this has gotten on my channel is I did a live stream dedicated to unboxing it and sniffing it for the first time, but I haven't worn it yet. This actually has 0 wearings. This is not a summer fragrance, which is why I haven't worn it yet. The first impression I did, which you can catch in that live stream, I can't say I loved it, but I do think this needs cold air to thrive. I can't even really describe it to you. It is very barnyardy, smoky. It's a lot of oud, pretty stinky at first spray. There is a little bit of this resinous incense sweetness that does almost smell blue. It could be an illusion in the head, I'm not sure, but I need to get to know it better. So that's all I'm going to say about it. More to come on King Blue as I get to know it. I found it to be quite powerful. No surprise there. So again, I need cold weather for this one. You're not going to hear about this until October at the very earliest. So keep your eyes out for more information about King Blue from Amouage. And my most worn Amouage. I've worn this 30 times. I've had this bottle for a few years. I don't reach for it all that much. It's been maybe 5 months since I last wore it. Similar to Darley, my wife is not a fan of this profile, so I try to avoid wearing it around her. This is Reflection Man. This is heralded as a classic, as a masterpiece, as a beautiful gateway fragrance into the house if you're just getting started with them. If you have not yet tried it, please do yourself a favor and get a sample. This was one of the first niche fragrances I ever tried. If I have to choose between this and Darley, I choose this. If I have to choose between this and Le Male, I choose this every time. It is one of the classiest floral masculine fragrances I've ever put my nose on. Again, based mainly on white florals, almost a soapy cleanliness, creamy, sweet, slightly dry, woody sandalwood, a little powdery, a beautiful fragrance. So elegant. I'll wait till the fall to probably give this another wearing when I can sneak one in. And I'm trying to get Grace accustomed to it with more wearings, wearing just a little bit at a time. I think she'll come around to it little by little, because I think what can really turn people away, the potency. It is the potency of a profile that they may not be crazy about that pushes them even further away. So for those of you guys wearing 10 plus sprays of your beast mode fragrances and then you say, my wife doesn't like this, I don't understand why, dial it back. Trust me, 1 to 2 sprays, see what happens. That's Reflection Man, technically my best from Amouage. I want to know what you think of these fragrances, and I want to know what your best and worst is, so to speak, from these brands. Let me know down in the comments. And again, you can check almost all of these fragrances out at fragrancebuy.ca. I'm going to have them linked down below in the description as usual. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.